right, so yeah, we're almost done with Rubenstein. I think everybody has 3 examples, and we already finished the first 2, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see what's going on here. Well, anyways. Yeah, in fact, he says, our final example of Rubenstein's endgame skill is against the great Aliekhin. The classic battle that follows leaves one with a sense of awe at the Polish player's tremendous strength.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Lofty praise indeed. Let's see how he puts the spanking on AAA. That was his nickname. Did you know that?
No.
Well, not really. I just call him that.
Oh.
His name's Alexander Alexandrovich Aliekhin. AAA.
It is AAA.
I saw a book like in a library, which is weird. Because like, why am I in a library? But it had it was like his games, right? And it was just Aliekhin's games.
Mm-hmm.
There was no commentary, no anything. It was just straight notation. And instead of saying Aliekhin all the time, it said AAA. It's AAA against whoever it was. All right, black to play.
All right.
Oh, this looks like the worst position ever for black, I guess. This is from Carlsbad, 1911. Aliekhin has black. Rubenstein has white. All right, let's see what happens. First of all, Aliekhin plays rook e8 ? The first thing that both sides have to do is determine if the pawn endgame after rook c8 takes is viable for black. The answer is no. Let's analyze it. e4, h6. If fe, de, g4, here comes another pass pawn. Let's go pick up this before you defend it, though. Black can get a pass pawn. King f3. And as we've seen earlier in the book, these pass pawns protect each other. And then we'll just go take that. And white wins. Again, the one pawn deep freezes the two, remember?
Oh, yeah.
The deep freeze. He doesn't even say that in here. Really, he doesn't say that this is the deep freeze.
I forgot it was called the deep freeze till you just said that.
So
I remember it now, though.
that loses after e4. h6 is the main line. Let me just figure out what's going on here. Okay. There's a lot of variations. It's kind of tough. e5, protected pass pawn. g5. Black tries to get some action going himself. If king d7, sort of normal move. g4, king e6. We can step around here. Black can sit tight, but we'll go here and we'll win. We'll pick up the pawn. Unless you go and defend it, then I'll do that. And if you go and take my pawn, I'll take this pawn, and I'll shoulder you out of this pawn.
Mm-hmm.
So h6, e5, g5. We just looked at king d7. Instead, g5. g4. If fg double question mark, hg, this gives black a fortress draw. The white king can never infiltrate. Which is true. And how are you going to access any square? Well, what if you go there and then f4? Right? That could work.
Mm-hmm.
That could work. And if black reacts first, he gives up this square. Like, black wants to answer f4 with g4, then you're stuck. Or g4 with f4, then you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
But if I play king h3 first, and then f4, and you play g4, king h4, I'm not stuck.
Right, that's true. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I found a good idea. And now you could stop me with your king. Like, let's say my king is here, yours is there, and our pawns are pushed.
Mm.
And I'll push this pawn, and you'll go win it, and then I can step up. I mean, that looks like that could win. Perhaps if I'm doing this, you go here and there, though. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Or just here at once. I don't know, that could win for... Because if you go here, I can do this. Then you go there. Okay, so I understand. So as I'm running my king here, you do this. No, I'll just ignore you then. And then when you go here, I'll take it. And if you take, I win. So I don't know. Why doesn't king f2, g2, h3 win with the idea of f4? Can we see Spencer play a game as both hand and brain?
You mean him
just a normal
play
game?
Somebody? Yeah, definitely sometime. I mean, usually we have a format, but sometimes we veer off of it.
Let's see what the computer says, because I can't figure it out with my brain. It says white's winning here.
Yeah.
And I think white's winning.
I liked your idea about going around town.
Yeah, that's where I bring it. I bring it around town.
Fluorescent Potato says, I wish I played all my solo games using both hand and brain.
I can even use, like, my heart.
Hey, Swaggood95.
Takes. Okay, I still think I can win. It says plus 14. I mean, this is obviously winning, right? Am I crazy? This is just very obviously winning.
Mm-hmm.
And the computer said white's winning the whole time. So he's wrong and I'm right. I knew it. I mean, I didn't know it, but it seems like my idea wins and computer confirms it. I mean, does it matter? Like, no, this is just winning. King h3 and f4 wins. e5, g5. Just making sure this is the right variation. I didn't get confused.
Yeah.
And the main line's g4, but we were talking about this, which he gives double question mark. But this is a win, yeah. He's wrong. This wins. King h3 and then f4. But it's okay. You can have one wrong line in a 500-page book.
Yeah, because it's been mostly solid.
Yeah. I mean, unless me and the engine are wrong, but it just seems like it was plus 11. It's probably winning. So g4, this is another line that also wins, even though he said this is the only win. F g4.
The Silman became the silly man.
That's funny. And now f g does not work. After king d7, f5, white cannot win. That is true for sure. How could you possibly win this? Your king can't enter. You can't win with just your pawns. I'll sit here. Or if you go there, you can't win. I'll just move back and forth. So this is certainly a draw. Oops. Come on, back up. So instead of f takes g4, white can play f g5. H g5. Now again, if you take here, you can't enter. There's no way for the white king to enter the position. It's impossible. So you can't play fg4. You have to just play king f2 exclam. And king g3. Intentionally losing a pawn in this variation. But now your king can enter here because you don't have a pawn here stopping you.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And it's all over. So the king and pawn endgame's losing. That was a nice fancy variation, but as we already proved, actually, we don't need to. We could just take and win. But we can do his fancy win too. Either way. The moral of the story is the king and pawn endgame's lost for black. Now, you should calculate that if you're playing a game, but you might already assume that because this is so bad. This is terrible. And I have 5 against 4 on the king side where I can make a pass pawn. You have 2 against 1 where you can't really make a pass pawn. So I'm essentially a pawn up in a king and pawn endgame. That almost always wins. right? It's like 90% of the time you're winning.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as it's not king and pawn against king, of course, then it's usually a draw. All right, this means that black is left with two other choices other than going into the king and pawn endgame. He can defend passively, which is rarely a good idea in a rook endgame, or he can get some active counterplay with a5. Marin points out this draws by force. Rook takes b6, king c7. If a4 double question mark, rook a6, takes, king c7 to stop the pawn, king d3 stops this pawn, and white wins because both sides are going to take the pawns, and white will be a pawn up, 5 against 4 on this side.
Oh, yeah. What edition is this book? Hey, Prophylaxis. I'm not
Does
sure.
it say?
Probably does. Maybe in the first page or two.
Right.
Yeah, we've Spencer just found one error. I'm sure there are a few,
There were a couple of typos,
Yeah.
but that was the first error in analysis.
Mm-hmm.
First edition.
First edition.
Dang, it'd be worth money if it was like a book.
Yeah.
Not like a chess textbook.
Yeah. Sometimes. Depends on the author.
So instead of a4, which loses to rook a6, like we just looked at, king c7 is the correct defense according to Marin. Check. King d2. King c2. Well, obviously if you keep pushing the pawn, we'll stop it. And then we'll just win it with rook a6 or rook c2. So rook e8, counterattack. And then king b6. And indeed, this looks like black will not lose. If anything, I might even prefer black. Because he's going to take this and have an outside pass pawn. He won't even lose his pawn. Or I guess you can defend this, but then I'll win this, and that's much worse. Well, black's totally winning there, probably.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this looks like this is the right way to defend a5. But obviously he didn't do that because he didn't want to see rook takes b6. He probably calculated a4, rook a6 takes is losing. Certainly Aliekhin calculated this variation.
Yeah, I would think.
He just thought king c7 's stupid because he'll just check me and I lost a pawn. But it just happens that this is enough to draw based on a couple of things. One, the b pawn is weak. So if your rook isn't here, I can go take it, like we saw at the end of the variation.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the e pawn is weak. He can counterplay the e pawn as well as with the a pawn. The king can't protect both. The king can't stop the pawn and protect the pawn. So the rook will have to go back to defend the pawn like we saw, but then you'll lose this pawn. So Aliekhin didn't understand all of that because it's very difficult to anticipate from this position. So he defended passively with rook e8. Like Marin, or like Silman points out, rather, it's usually wrong to defend passively in a rook endgame because rooks are very active pieces, like they're huge pieces, second best piece on the board, right? So if you have a passive rook, that's a huge disadvantage. Having missed this opportunity, Aliekhin faces endless pain as Akiba leaps into torture mode. Dang, my favorite kind of mode. Why is white so much better here? There are several reasons. One, white's rook is more active than black's. White's one queenside pawn holds back black's two. Black's king is busy stopping rook penetration on c8 and or c7, so white's king is more mobile. The g3, g4 pawn break will create new weaknesses in black's camp. Black is passive and can't do anything but wait for white to improve the position. Rubenstein's fondest fantasy. Let's see if anybody's saying anything fun. Wish I played solo games. All right, you said that. Silman's silly man. That's when Ben had his black in his last had with black in his Foxwood game. What edition? Oh, you already said that. All right, so yeah, you're paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
Rook e7. I was just wondering if anybody had questions about all this analysis. G4. Rook e6. So now Rubenstein is asked the question, are you going to trade rooks or not? He declines. He plays rook c1. This is a practical decision. Obviously, he thought that the king and pawn endgame could win, but he didn't calculate a forced win, so he didn't do it. right? And that's basically the attitude you have to have when you're better in an endgame like this, like a rook endgame or just one piece, and your opponent offers the trade into the king and pawn endgame. You don't really want to enter a king and pawn endgame unless you're winning, assuming that you start better, like white's better here. So if you're better in a king and pawn endgame or better in a rook endgame, I'll take a rook endgame. I can keep squeezing, and I can maybe go into king and pawn endgame later. So if you're better and your opponent offers a trade, you should only trade if you're going to win by force. And he didn't see a win, so he didn't do it. But rook takes does win. Now we have to analyze a lot of analysis. Hooray. Takes GF. And here black's losing. All right, so he has two legal moves, really, right? GF or king takes. GF's the main line, but let's look at king takes. King e2. H6, H5. I mean, the reason he played H6 and H5 is to intentionally lose a move, because he actually doesn't want to move here. It's sort of zugzwang. So he just has to go back and then E4. King H4 to stop the penetration. E takes D. No, you gotta stop the pawn, though. F5. Oh, F5. I mean, this already seems like this obviously wins, right? I wouldn't even analyze much more than this. But he does go on. Well, maybe you have to calculate a little bit here. Maybe. And wins. Analysis by Silman. That looked all correct to me. Alright, so G takes instead of king takes. Here we go. E4 still.
Hey, Max and Jack, how's it going?
Hey, hey. Said hi to both of us. So I had to respond too. King E7. If F takes, D takes, king takes. This is like how we saw earlier. The pawns will defend each other. And my king will stop your pawn, and then I'm going to win. So that's not really a sufficient defense. King E7. E5. So now he has a protected pass pawn. Usually that wins, as we know. Zugzwang. Can't move the king because I'll take it, so he has to move his pawn. Oh, come on. If king f7, he gives this variation as well. Etc. So h5. King h5. King g5. a5. I don't really know about this analysis. Seems like it's obviously lost.
Hey, Market Sands, how's it going?
Winning. This is analysis by Marin. This is proven to be a win by here, there, both sides queen.
Then we're going to be done with it soon.
Check.
We've come this far. We're going to finish.
Yeah, definitely. And the queen endgame is lost. Because you're down 2 pawns. You got no checks. Actually, you still do have a check. But we'll believe it's lost. Because it's down a lot of material. So that's fair enough. Although that would be difficult to win, admittedly. Why did Rubenstein avoid this? Quite simply, he knew that all king and pawn endgames are confusing, like we already talked about. If that was the only way to win, he would have gone for it, but why take the chance that he was missing a defensive nuance in the king and pawn endgame when he could quietly dole out the slow, patient death that a rook endgame offered? Yeah, and that's assuming, of course, that Rubenstein analyzed all of this accurately, which he could. But I think, he just wasn't sure that it was a win by force, so you wouldn't do it. You have to be sure it's a win to go for it. Otherwise,
Right.
you're just going to win this position because you're winning.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great position. That's basically how it goes. The answer is fries.
Hey, beast mode prodigy.
So rook c1, rook e7, rook h1. Goes back. This is how you play chess. This is what I like to see. Yes. Yes. And then watch this. Oh, yeah. This is like classic. Yeah, in fact, he says vintage cat and mouse.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly right. Finally, he begins his true plan. His king will head for h4, where it hopes to penetrate into the enemy position, or force black to create new weaknesses in effort to prevent it. Yes, absolutely. Or he could play h6, but then we'll take here, and then this is weak, is what he's trying to say. And that's weak. And the f-pawn we could take with the rook. So, rook f7. The pawn endgame after rook c8 is still lost. Not as much analysis here. Rook takes, king takes, gf exclam, king takes e4 with similar play as we saw earlier. We'll get a protected pass pawn and we'll win over here.
Mm-hmm.
Or he'll take, and then we'll get the two pawns that protect each other, and then we'll go win on the h-pawn, like we already saw. So rook f7.
Hey, Game King. Your ex-girlfriend was difficult and confusing. I like your joke. Like a king and pawn in game.
Yeah, I've been there. So king g5 is the threat, so he does play h6. Now he's got more weaknesses along the 6th rank. Black had to keep white's king out of g5, but now the 6th rank becomes seriously weakened. Thus, white brings his king back to guard e3 so that the rook can go up and attack. Intending king f2 followed by rook c6, immediately taking advantage of the new weaknesses on the 6th rank. Brilliant play here by Rubenstein to find these nuances. h5. Aliekhin realizes a little bit too late that he must create some form of counterplay. So he avoids playing passively still, for example, here, there. Now this is threatened. Still, he'd probably have to play h5. Then after here, he'd have to play rook a8. He's certainly going to lose at this point. Rook a8's terrible. So he goes for h5 right away. Now, Rubenstein, he was going to go here and there, but you weaken g5 again, so here we go. Back to g5. Really nice stuff. Moves here, then back, then back. Yes, classic. Now, if only Aliekhin could go h6. That would be the way to defend. As always, Rubenstein makes a point of keeping his opponent's counterplay to a minimum. The immediate gh, king h4 looks pretty good, but it allows rook g7, when white still wins, but why give black's rook free rein so quickly? Agreed. King h4 at once. Rook h7, he just steps up. He's not going to give him any counterplay. Fg. This sets a cute trap, which Rubenstein avoids. Fg, that's right. That's what he did. Not falling for a king takes double question mark, g3 exclam. King takes h7. Now, if h4, it's draws. Rook a3, a3, h3, check. Rook g7. h2, check. This seems like it loses, right? Check. King f7. Not king f5. King g7 exclam. Queen mate. Really nice.
No, I didn't even see that it was made.
Yes, definitely. So king f7 to not get mated in that variation.
Yeah.
Now it's actually a draw by perpetual check. I just keep checking you with my rook.
Mm-hmm.
Your king can't escape over anywhere. And if you ever go here, this is the only way to go to the 5th rank. You get mated in that variation.
Hey, break for coffee.
Oh, Endgame king. So this is actually a draw. However, instead of h4, black can win in this position. g2, forcing rook c1, and now h4, where rook a1 no longer draws with best play, like we saw previously with the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
For example, here are a couple of lines that actually don't work for black. h3 doesn't work. This is the same. Check. He says it's the same. Let's say here. Right, because we can do this, and now we're stopping the queen. The other way, it was like this. So he had to, like, finagle out of that.
Oh, yeah.
But he had an extra tempo with white, so he could. Here, he's down a tempo, but he actually... The extra tempo is this pawn was pushed, so... That's not going to win. We still perpetual the same way. And again, if you go up here, we play king g7 and rook f6 mate. So h3 doesn't win. King c8 double question mark also does not win. f5, h3, f6, h2, f7, queen, just king g7. Not even taking the queen, just king g7, a crazy position. Black to move only can draw. The idea is that if you take the rook and I promote to a queen, it's going to be perpetual check. Your king's clearly not going to be able to survive. Well, he'll draw, but he's not going to be able to run away.
Mm.
Queen, check. Here. You can't stop the pawn from queening, so you might as well take. But after promoting with the queen, check. Clearly, black's not winning. It says equal here, according to his analysis. It just says equal after king d7, which stops the queen trade, which is actually pretty important. Because king c7, queen e7 probably wins because I have a passed f pawn. Okay, I'd rather have white, but obviously black's not winning, so black shouldn't do this because black should be winning, actually. Okay, hold on a minute. Let me get back. So king c8, that was the variation we looked at. That ends up drawing with that crazy with he queens, and you can't stop us from queening. But king d8 actually does win. Let's do the same thing. Now, if you queen check king g7, that's the same thing we just looked at, but the king's on d8 instead of c8, which doesn't make a difference. So that is not going to win for black. However, king e7 will win. That's the difference between king c8 and king d8. Here we can play king e7 where you can't do that. Stopping the guy from queening, obviously. And if you go here, we'll queen here with check, which will stop you from queening, and then I'll play king takes pawn later. After you move your king away, or you take my queen, then move your king away. Takes here, but now after king f8, white can resign. You're not going to promote your pawn, I'm going to promote two queens. Yeah, really nice. Really nice variation there. King d8 exclam with e7 is the idea. Okay, so...
And then that was early, when was that played?
1911.
Okay,
this
that
game.
was a long time ago.
But king g6 was not played in the game.
Right.
He played fg instead. So king g6 loses, but it's very treacherous. Black has to play very precisely to win, as we saw. And there's so many other draws, but that king d8 variation was the only one that wins.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, the king takes g6. Rubenstein wouldn't play it because there's several variations that drew even, and he's winning. So it doesn't matter if it loses for him. He's not going to play something that you can draw with a lot of stuff as well. He just plays fg. hg. King takes. Rook h1. King g5. So black's rook has finally gotten out of the box, but white's powerful king, pressure against a7, d5, and g6 will be decisive. Rook b1. White also wins if rook check, and here, check, and there, picking up the d-pawn. Rook b1 counterplay here. Rook a3 attacking a7. It's got so many weaknesses, this black. This is how the game went. F-pawn looks pretty good. White's active king and far advanced f-pawn guarantee victory, though some subtle play is still required. Check. Rook f3. f7. Rook f4. Black's last stand. His idea is to check along the 4th rank until White's king blocks its own pawn on f8. Then capture the d-pawn, because you won't be able to queen with your own king there. He'll give up his rook for the last pawn and draw with the b and d pawns against the rook at the end. That's his plan. King f6 exclam. He's not going in front of his pawn, refuting Black's plan. Very nice. White will thwart Black's idea by chasing the enemy rook off the 4th rank with his king, and only then allowing himself to be herded to f8, since in that case the pawn will no longer be under attack if the rook is not here. Get out of here, he says. Now I'll go back up there. Now if you play rook f4 again, he'll play rook a8, threatening to queen, and that'll win. That'll end the game. You only have one check, but then I can stop you and queen next turn. So he has to check. Check, and now he will put his king in front of his own pawn to stop the checks, but now you can't play rook takes d4 anymore.
Are you reading a script that says Fern fam? We're actually going through a book.
Yeah.
We're almost done too.
That's true. So now he can put his king in front of the pawn. Rook d1, king e8, check. Rook d7, king e8, flawless technique. Black's only hope is to swing his king up here to take the pawn and try again to draw 2 pawns against a rook. Rubenstein's maneuver has prevented this, however, because if king d5 will take this with check first, so you won't even have your d-pawn anymore. Rook f4. Now if you queen, I'll take it and your rook's hanging. So rook e7. Now he goes king b5 because we can't play rook takes d5 anymore. Rook c7. Ice cold. Cutting him off on the c-file. Resigns. Rubenstein refuses to give his opponent the slightest hint of counterplay. Here's the idea. Check, king d7. Rook f4, king e7. Check here. Check there. And then that. And White's obviously going to win now. Up a pawn, and they're both queening.
Mm-hmm.
Magnificent demonstration of the endgame by Rubenstein. Absolutely. Great rook and pawn endgame there. You said that yesterday, Market Sands. Oh, no need to be sorry, Fern fam.
You thought Steve Jobs replaced books with iPads.
Yeah.
I do actually read a good amount on my iPad, but I don't even know where this book came from.
Right.
Nothing wrong with reading a good book.
I enjoy the feel of a real newspaper. Yeah, tough stuff, but Rubenstein got it done.
Yeah.
I would never win a game like this, for the record.
Yeah. Dr. Xmas Easy,
Easy.
or Christmas Easy, as you like to say. Crazy how precise the play needed to be.
Yes,
Despite-
absolutely.
Despite the passport.
Well, Aliekhin put up very good defense, right? He made it so you had to play it absolutely in order to win.
Mm-hmm.
And he sets a lot of tricky defenses. That's what you have to do when you're defending too. You can't just say, I'm lost, I'm going to lose. Make it as tough as possible for them. It was 1911, Fluorescent Potato.
I just hear some noise. Is somebody here?
No, they weren't messing around
Hey.
back then. That's true, Fluorescent Potato.
Somehow I've misplaced a chord.
I don't believe it.
Yeah. So anyway.
I believe it.
This looks good for white.
Yeah, this is Rubenstein Aliekhin from
Rubenstein's always
1911.
winning rook and pawn in
Let me
things.
get it for a
Yeah,
second.
that actually was what it said. Is he's the rook and pawn endgame master.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's fine. We'll come fix it.
Well, Archer has a chord.
Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to.
Yeah, quit ragging on his chord.
Instead of chicken fried rice, Holden wants beef fried rice.
Whoa, adventurous.
Holden didn't like the little animal the dogs were playing with, and I was like, "You're ordering this animal and this animal to eat? What are you talking about?" Right?
That's pretty.
That's what I was thinking.
This dude looks
So
like
is he?
Ben
He's
Jr.
getting
I'll
Chinese
probably
food.
just be home.
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
asked if he wanted Papa John's or Chinese, and he laughed and laughed. He said, "Nobody ever wants Papa John's."
Uh,
No, he didn't. He just said Chinese.
so what did you want to do? Because
Well,
we
oh,
could
you're
go
talking to him.
till 5, so we could do
It's
a little
cold
bit more.
in here. Aren't you cold?
It's chilly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm never cold and you're cold.
All right. I'm
Well,
glad.
we only did one game there, but it did seem like a lot.
I'm
I
gonna
would
go
be.
to Publix, so if you want something, text me.
Okay.
I'm going for me, but you know.
Yeah, I like those little bottles of lemonade that they come in like a single serving size, but they're Publix lemonade.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Hmm.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
know what those are. I know what you mean.
Usually up front in the
They're cool,
cooler.
right?
Sometimes they're with the jugs.
Wow.
They are.
How many do you want?
One.
Oh. Oh, you mean bring it back here later? Or you mean like at home?
Oh, you're going home now?
Yeah,
Where are
I'm
you
going, like,
Oh, I
to-
thought you were. Okay, I
Yeah,
got confused.
I'm not working till 8. So
All right. Okay, well, never mind then.
Ah. So get 2 of them then. Bye.
Bye. Well, so
I think we can go on with some Capablanca now.
I think we could keep going, I guess is what I was
Yeah,
going to say.
I mean we've been streaming for less than an hour.
Yeah.
already.
So I think we could keep going, or we could take a break, and I could play a couple. But I think we'll just keep going, and then we'll do.
All right.
Playing at the end. Hey, Bishop takes. Yeah, I don't know why the notifications don't work sometimes. It's annoying though.
Yeah, that should work. Then we would get more viewers,
Yeah.
theoretically at least. All right, Jose Raul Capablanca, the third world champion. He's considered by most to have been the greatest natural talent in the history of the game. He didn't put much time into opening study, and much preferred a night on the town to a tedious task of chess analysis. Nevertheless, when he sat down to play, everything just seemed to magically click. His plans and moves were crystal clear, and no less a player than Aliekhin said that he had never seen anyone else with such a flabbergasting quickness of chess comprehension. It's actually Aliekhin said that, not Silman, so you can't even blame Silman for that. All right, anyways, he goes on and on about Capablanca, but let's just, I think that's enough. You know, we all know who he is.
I guess you're making reference to this song Copacabana, Dr. X Massisi, maybe?
Barry Manilow. And I might rather listen to Bryan Adams. No, I guess I'd rather listen to Barry Manilow if I had to pick, but it's pretty close.
Yeah.
What about you?
Oh,
Karen,
it's-
he came without taking. I don't know the lyrics. It's
It's-
something like that.
It's tough. Yeah, I don't know.
You don't imagine your name when he's singing that song?
No.
Surprising.
But I guess I'd take Manilow. I'd take Manilow. If you're gonna make me take
I mean,
one
he's
of
just a
them.
better singer. That's
Yeah.
why. That's the only reason.
Yeah, but same type, sappy kind of songs.
Totally.
Is he the one? No, that's not him.
First time watching her laugh? Really? You laughed at least yesterday. Phoenix 25, I play bad. Oh, it's actually bad. All right.
Hey, Phoenix. Well, I try to laugh, at least once a stream.
So I've actually shown this, I think, even in a lecture at the chess club here.
Yeah?
Yes, definitely. It was about like pawn majorities.
Oh.
So Capablanca has black. He's got 3 against 2 on the queen side. Marshall with white has 4 against 3 on the king side. In the end game, generally, a queen side majority is better than a king side majority. And in the middle game, usually a king side majority is better.
Oh, well, that's useful information.
Yeah, because I'll tell you why.
Okay, because I didn't know all this.
Well, both sides castle king side. That's usually the case
Okay.
in chess, right? I would say each side has about 90% chance to castle king side. Right, so, about 81% of the time, both sides castle king side. Assuming that math is correct. We'll have to ask Holden, I guess. So, in that case, imagine a king and pawn endgame. If you got 3 against 2, the white king will have to run all the way over there to stop you. Right?
True.
Now, if you have 4 against 3, the black king can just sit there and he'll stop your passed pawn. He's already there. And so that's why in the endgame, because the king will have to go over to defend the queen side, you'd rather have a queen side majority.
I see.
It costs the opponent time to defend against it. Whereas it doesn't cost black time to defend against white's majority. Because he's already there. And in the middle game, it's different because kingside space could lead to an attack against the king. If there are knights and bishops and queens on the board, and I have a bunch of pawns in your grill, like on these 5 squares, I have 1 or 2 pawns there, and I'm going to be attacking your king and making weaknesses against your king, and I have a lot of pieces that can infiltrate. That's a lot more dangerous than your queenside pawns, because you're not going to mate me. So that's why in this position with some reduced material, it should favor black, all other things being equal. But I don't know. I don't know if this position itself is very good for black.
Fluorescent Potato says, does that imply that a kingside majority is better if both sides castle queenside?
I would say yes.
I would think
yeah,
this
absolutely.
implied. What do you laugh at? Knock knock jokes, says Phoenix. I'm probably.
Why did he add Nightbot? Does Nightbot say knock knock?
I
jokes?
don't know. I'm nothing wrong with a good knock knock joke. That's not my kind of joke, but I will laugh at one of those.
This middle game position has one outstanding feature for black: his queenside pawn majority. Yeah, that's just what I said. Rook b8, queen e4, queen c7, unpinning the bishop and avoiding the threat of bishop h3. Rook c3. To me, I feel like that's a bad move, but I don't know. Maybe not. b5, a3, c4. Bishop f3. Lasker says that black's advantage could be kept to a minimum with rook d1 first, which does seem like a pretty natural move, and then rook c1. Yeah, I don't think he should have gone here at all. Why would you play rook c3, rook d1, and then back to c1, instead of just rook c1 to d1?
Yeah.
Like, what? But anyways, still black's a little bit better. Agreed. So this defense was weird, rook c3, a3, and not playing rook d1. Rook f d8. Now he played rook d1. Yeah, this is where I started in the lecture that I gave about pawn majorities.
Oh, okay.
Rook takes d1, bishop takes d1, rook d8, bishop f3, little lift, queen c6, queen e4, queen e5 rather, queen e4, takes. Black to move. Having zipped through 11 moves, we find that the basic nature of the position hasn't changed at all, except for the fact we now have an endgame, which is winning for black. Black's middle gameplay was completely devoted to achieving this kind of queenside majority rules the position. Note that the pawns have become threatening. Black's bishop is perfectly placed to support them, and black's rook dominates its counterpart since it owns the only open file. Check, exclam, great move. Capablanca says this is very important. Black must stop the approach of the white king by means of bishop c2 followed by king f1, etc. That's actually what he said, etc. He didn't say mainly, etc. That was weird. Here, now b4 is coming, so he goes there. Then here's b4. Black's moves seem effortless, giving the impression that anyone could do it. That's true, right? Bishop e2. Kasparov points out that rook d2 also fails. Here's some analysis by Kasparov. Rook a1 exclam. Bishop e2, rook a2. c3. Oh, Market Sands cheered.
Yay, thank you, Market Sands. You often play that good fluorescent?
b3. b2 winning, says Kasparov. Of course, bishop c2 is met by bishop a2, winning a piece. So rook d2 still lost, although that seems like a tough way to win. You have to go here and then c3. And probably Capablanca would do that. b3. If rook c3 takes, rook c2 exclam, winning a piece. You're going to have to take my pawn, and then I'll take your piece. So rook d2. Now here Capablanca played a really nice way to win the game. He has actually tactical wins here. Rook takes b2, I believe, wins. I remember analyzing that on my own. He doesn't give that move. But Capablanca plays the easiest win by a mile. You don't even need to calculate. Here you need to calculate, really. He just goes rook c1, rook c2. Breaking it down immediately. Bishop d3. And bishop d1, obviously. King f3 would also lose, as you might imagine. Here, c3, b2, check. Come on, check. Check. And here. Nice. Shutting it down. It's a queen now. You can't even give up a piece for it. So instead he played bishop d1 to stop rook c2.
Is this a chess story?
Sort of. I mean, I feel like all chess games are chess stories.
Yeah.
c3 exclam. Well, it's been a winning endgame. Like I said, you know, back here, like rook c3 is not right, and his defense was poor. Bishop f3, even Lasker said rook d1 probably doesn't lose. So I think rook c3 is a mistake, and bishop f3 is a mistake, and he's probably losing all the way after that. Yeah, because this stuff's more or less forced now. c3, b2, winning the bishop. If you play bishop c2, I'll just take it, so it doesn't help. The rest is a demonstration of Capablanca's usual brutal technique. Yeah, I remember his technique was really good here. This is important because I feel like a lot of people in the chat might not win this with black so easily, especially if their opponent's putting up resistance. But we can see how he combines mating threats with the king, with just attacking his pawns as well. Here we go, h5. So it's already like he's going to do this and then that, or even, I'm sorry, this and then that. So he plays g4. Here comes one pawn.
What's a blunder, Fin Fam?
That's a good question. What is a blunder?
He says that's a blunder.
Oh. I thought he was asking what a blunder was.
Mm-mm.
And resigns. You're right, fluorescent potato. What? Yeah, what if she finished it? Oh, that's a good retort. Yeah, put a ring on it. That's what a Beyonce would say. So, good game by Capablanca. I knew that game well, actually. Like I said, I've shown it in a lecture, and I've shown it to my students as well. It's a very clean example. Oh,
Yay.
Pat Sirius subscribed.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Pat
Sirius.
Sirius.
Bishop
It's-
G2 was a blunder? Seemed like a good move. Oh, you want to take the pawn, I guess. But yeah, he wants to mate. Mating is better than a pawn. But okay, you could take the pawn. That should... Oh no, you're going to get stalemated maybe, right? You might get stalemated here. Like if I took the rook off the board, it's stalemate, you know. But I can't like do this because then it's not stalemate. So he didn't want to stalemate his opponent is the fact of the matter. Although it's not stalemate because if you ever check, I just give you the square.
Mhm.
But just in case he didn't want to, give the option, right? Just go here and mate him. You don't need the pawn. Potential stalemate. Nice. So what do you think? One more game of Capablanca?
I think so. And then
Yeah.
that should be
Could
about
finish
right.
finish this last example, or
Mhm.
maybe are there two examples? Oh, there's one or two examples. So
Okay.
we'll just do one either way.
Yeah, we'll just one example at a time.
It's like one piece at a time. Old Johnny. And it didn't cost me a dime.
Spencer's a national master, Phoenix.
That's true.
He's about 2,200 for
That's about
regular time control.
right. Yeah. All right, this is Capablanca against Janowski. Capablanca has white. It's white to move. From 1913.
Cool. Yeah, and real quick, these endgames, they are organized by themes, but also by level.
Yes.
So at least some of the chapters are for a certain rating level.
Which nation in particular has Spencer mastered? The United States. This game shows that Capablanca had completely mastered the ideas of patience and avoidance of counterplay. White's three advantages: more active rooks, space, and superior pawn structure. Apparently, this is all the Cuban genius needs to grind out a win. G4. White's rooks look impressive on the half-open f-file, but they can't do damage if they can't penetrate into the position. So G4, he's going to make a pawn break G5, obviously, frankly. B6, he's trying to play C5. B4 exclam. Nowadays, this is a well-known idea in such positions. White's one pawn freezes the A and C6 pawns. Effectively kills Black's whole queenside pawn mass. All four. They can't move because of this pawn. One pawn kills four. There's no threat. Capablanca will happily improve his position of his king. White's philosophy is clear. Don't rush. Stop all queenside counterplay. Centralize the king. And slowly but surely prepare to blast open the f-file with G4, G5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Phoenix.
So he played B5. Yeah, thanks. That was nice.
Mm-hmm.
We do have pretty good voices, I think.
Mm-hmm.
B5, an ugly-looking move that creates a serious threat. Black wants to play King B6, followed by A5, and get some counterplay in the A file. A4 exclam. Yeah, I've seen this actually too. I've seen this game too. Definitely. I remember B4, A4. I was like, oh yeah, it's definitely. A4 exclam. Refusing to give his opponent anything at all. King B6, A5 check would stop Black from playing A5. While BA, Rook A1, followed by Rook A4, leaves Black worse off than he was before he played B5, BA.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly.
Hey, Diva Wheeler.
So Rook D4, Rook B1, Rook E5. This ultimately loses with hardly a whimper, though B takes A, question mark, Rook A5, Rook E5, King E3. Now if you take the rook, I take discovered check and win your rook. Rook D6, followed by Rook A4 is winning for white. Instead of all this, Black could have tried his last chance, A5. Alright, now we got some analysis because this is complicated. Best then is A takes B5, Rook takes B4, BC check, If BC check, king takes, rook a1, a4, rook a5, rook b2. Clearly black's getting some counterplay, right? I mean, he's already threatening stuff. Instead of b takes c6 check, rook takes b4 exclam is better. AB, rook c5. So now if you take here, I take check, and then I pick up both pawns, you got no threats. And you just have an isolated pawn, and also I'm a pawn up with white there. If all these pawns get traded. So, rook e6, king e3, takes, king d4 exclam. The king and pawn endgame is very unpleasant for black. Here's a sample of what might occur. Here's an example, just a little sample. King b5. If king d6, question mark, although is king b5 not losing? I don't know. King d6, king c4, c5, king b5, g6, king b6, h6, king b5. Black's going to be zugzwanged. He's going to run out of pawn moves, have to move his king, and that's a good game. Instead of king d6, king b5, king d5, c6 check, king d6, c5, king d5, king b6. Instead of king b6, if g5, question mark, which I would never even consider this move because it just gives away tempo moves later. I can't play g6 and g5 later, so I don't really know why he would love that to play that move. Anyways, king e6, c4, takes. Not to mention g5 weakens f6, which he just took. King c3, e5. Here we go. Here's a little race. I assume it's going to be queen e4 check here. Yeah, queen e4 check and wins. Trade queens, take all your pawns.
Yeah.
But g5's not really a move I would consider, honestly.
Bishop takes his nice Cypress Hill reference.
Yes, that was a Cypress Hill reference. I do love that song. h4, h6, king e6. Here. So this makes white work a little more and still starts the race. The reason, by the way, that white's taking is because he doesn't want to have to give him the b pawn like that. The passed b pawn. So he's taking to make black work a little more too.
Right, yeah.
Now black queen's first, right? But white is winning this endgame. It's a pawn up, and you're probably going to win this pawn. And so this is, again, a winning queen and pawn endgame, which would take significant amount of technique to win, but is ultimately a win. So the moral of the story is black is still losing, but you have to calculate a lot and prove it, to win.
Right.
After a5. So, let's go back. Let's see. He played rook e5. Instead. Like he said, this will lose with hardly a whimper. King e3. The king chases the rook from its active position, and white takes total control of the game. Rook d7, a5 exclam. Shutting down all counterplay entirely. Black can never play a5. His queenside's stuck like this, and white can just win at his leisure with g5. Now it's a technical win for sure. No more counterplay, ending black's dreams of queenside counterplay once and for all. Rook e6. Equally depressing are c5. Takes d4. Okay. That's totally hopeless, obviously. Or rook takes, g takes. Then we'll get in on the g file, right? And we also have this pawn break to play too. For example, rook e7, h4, king c8, rook g1, king d7, d4, king e8, c3, just building. h5. Yeah, this looks pretty depressing. He goes for king e3 here, but he also says that e5 should win. But this does give some counterplay, although this wins for white, he says, because you're going to get two connected pass pawns because of h6. But it's more technical to play this, give no counterplay. He wants to push the c pawn. If king d6 to protect the pawns, cb, cb, d5, here comes rook c6. Rook a8, ugh. This is beyond awful, he says. This would be funny, right? Mate in one. I would do that just because, like, I want to resign with black anyway. So I might as well just play king e5 because it's funny. bc instead of king d6. Rook c4, king d6. Rook c2. By the way, he doesn't mention this, but the idea of rook c2 is that we're going to play this, but we don't want you to play that, hitting my rook. So rook c2 just gets out of the way of the eventual pawn push, king d5.
Okay, I see.
And he says white wins with e5, eventually, like next move, because black can't do anything. Well, actually, you could play g5, then you can't play e5, but g5 does lose a pawn to en passant.
Fluorescent Potato says, in the end, black's doubled pawns doubled him.
That is true.
You're sensing a trend of rook a8.
Being terrible.
Because
Yes.
you probably already lost.
Yes. I mean, if your rook is here defending the pawn, and their rook is on the 6th rank attacking everything, looks bad. I hope you have some pawns to compensate for that, at least. But obviously black didn't in that variation. Rook bf1. With black's counterplay permanently suppressed, white goes back to the plan of attacking on the f-file. g5 upcoming. Here it is. So the idea here is to play d4 and e5, push that e pawn. Rook h e6. This prevents d4 because your pawn will be hanging. h4. Rook g5. And then he provokes this move. He just goes back. Now this is weak. Rook g7, d4. Check. If he goes here, then rook a8 is not appealing. You'd lose your a pawn, or you play this and lose your c pawn. So he just went back to b7. Rook e7. hg, rook f5.
Phoenix has a question.
Oh, yes.
I think that was from a while back, though. Couldn't he play rook c5 instead? Like several moves ago.
Let's see where it's possible to play rook c5. I know where he meant it. He meant here, rook c5. Yeah, but he just wanted to put pressure on g6, right?
I thought it was before then, but...
No. Oh, he said no. You're right.
Mm.
Oh, instead of retreating
Like
here. His pawn is hanging. That's why he
yeah.
defended it. Yeah, so if you play rook c5, your pawn's hanging. You could try this and that, but he doesn't want to play rook c5. Oh, and there's only one rook. So that was in a different variation, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like here, he probably meant. Yeah. Well, anyways, there are a lot of ways that white could win this particular position. Like this, he means, I guess. Instead of rook c2, he wants rook c5. Yeah, that should win. I mean, if it's black's turn, it wins, right? I'll just go here whenever I feel like it. I guess if rook c5... No, I mean, that should be no problem, right? Maybe rook c5, rook b8 attacks the pawn, though. So you'd have to calculate that.
Mm-hmm.
But even still, it should win. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
There's no chess match between the Finegolds planned for the near future.
Now, here's a quick checklist of white's pluses. More active king, more active rooks, better pawn structure, about to win material. The last one's pretty important.
Mm-hmm.
Black could resign here with a clear conscience. The rest was kid stuff for Capablanca. C5 desperation. He could try like this, I guess, but then rook a8. Obviously lost. So he went here for c5. Here we go. Now he's going to get him. Now he'll show him who's boss. But after d5 resigns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As usual, Capablanca made this endgame appear remarkably easy. Yes, but also his opponent didn't press him at the right moment. Black has to play a5 here, which is losing, as we did a lot of analysis on it, but it's complicated. And even the variation that ended up winning, that was the toughest variation. It was a queen and pawn endgame where it's queen and 2 against queen and 1, where you still need more technique to win that. So this would have made it much more difficult for Capablanca, but after here, and then he got in a5, it's no counterplay, no calculation. He just plays g5 and crashes through and gets a pass pawn, like we saw. So very instructive stuff. Yeah, modern grandmasters, they defend a lot better than Black did here. They don't lose like this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, Capablanca got a lot of wins. People weren't defending right. But you can't really blame them. They didn't have anybody to study. Modern, like Kramnik and Carlsen and Anand, they look at these games. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, I can defend better. And then they do defend better. These guys couldn't look at games from the future.
Yeah.
So, tough. But Capablanca took them to school.
Hey, working class hero, how's it going?
Yeah, I mean, maybe rook d4 wasn't great here as well. But it did force the rook to b1, which later it went back to f1. So even though he wasted some time, so did white. So it didn't really hurt Black. I mean, rook d4 is actually not terrible. It's just that here rook e5 was wrong. A5 is the try. A5 is the try in this position. They didn't read Capablanca's books. What's wrong with them? Oh, yeah, they didn't exist yet, I guess. Yeah. All right, we still do have one more Capablanca example, but maybe we can play games instead
Yeah.
if you wanted.
Yeah, I think so. My brain's kind of tired.
Mm-hmm. That's the best thing to do for a tired brain. Play
Yeah.
chess.